introduce myself. My name is Andhita Nurul Khasanah, and today I'm going to present our research with the title Word Analysis regarding the terminology of addiction in adolescents. This is one part of our research about addiction and the biased perception about the terminology of addiction itself within adolescents in Bandung, Indonesia. Okay, this is about our research. Around 275 million people in the world have used drugs based on the World Drugs Report on 280, and around 3.4 million people in Indonesia have used drugs also, and the millennial generation in Indonesia, especially in students who use drugs, reach about 2.29 million people, and the age range is about 15 until 35 years old. We try to identify the word of addict comes from the Latin addictus, and why addiction, it's drugs and addiction becoming more sensitive and more bigger in each period or each year. So we try to find in the DSM-4 addiction can be categorized as substance abuse or substance dependence, and the term abuse creates stigma and has a negative connotation. So in the psychological terminology and psychiatric terminology, the terminology that we use every day nowadays somehow create stigma and have a negative connotation. So in the DSM-5 change the terminology as substance use disorder, and to get rid of the stigma. But our study show that high societal stigma against addicts hinders addict recovery program. So it talk about how people with substance use problems and anything about substance use somehow feels and found difficulties and stigma when they have to get a recovery from rehabilitation program, etc. So we try to identify what kind of languages, what kind of words, what kind of terminology that can bring us to a negative perception, implicit, the negative perception bias, or and then and it's becoming stigma in Indonesia, especially in Bandung. But we specifically do this research of the adolescents. Why? Because the age range that Indonesia data found about the drugs use in Indonesia is about 15 until 35 years old. And adolescence is the most sensitive period to get a problem in drugs use and community with drug users. Okay, so we found about 307 teenagers in the city of Bandung with age range is 15 until 18 years, and we use instrument with open-ended question and qualitative analysis to analyze the result of our questionnaire. We try to find what the association first comes out from their mind when we try to give a word narkoba. In Indonesia, we say it narkoba, and maybe in English we can say it drugs. So we give them an open-ended question. A result that it's about 27 word that associated with narkoba or drugs in English. We have translated in English here, and there are three pairs of words that are concluded as further experimental materials. We found it obat-obatan berbahaya, and we pairing with nabza. Why we pairing with nabza, not just obat-obatan berbahaya? Because we try to found first about the most frequent word that adolescents, our participants use in narkoba. Why we don't use methamphetamine or prison maybe? Because after we try to identify in literature with literature review, some previous research, we found that the most familiar terminology in a campaign or anything that we can found as a visual or auditory campaign about prevent narkoba or drugs in Indonesia, it's usually use obat-obatan berbahaya. So we choose the narkoba and then obat-obatan terlarang, and then we use rehabilitation that more the most representation to more representate about the drugs itself. So it's not only about the result based on our open-ended question, but also with our previous study that we used to do with literature review, and we found that obat-obatan berbahaya, obat-obatan terlarang, narkoba, rehabilitation atau rehabilitasi in bahasa is the most associated word with narkoba itself, okay, and nafsa also. And then our result have a conclude that the negative stigma or stereotypes about substance abuse disorder are potentially harmful for everyone that have been there or still there, or maybe they live in the society with substance abuse disorder. And the societal stigma becomes a crucial problem for the perception of adolescent social acceptance. That's why we focus on adolescents in this research, and the terminology, wording and language to describe the issues in society influence individual perception. And then finding words that are related with addiction and substance abuse will be matched word with other neural words. So this is our first study. To continue our next study to assess about the bias, implicit bias or the perception bias about the terminology in addiction itself with experimental methods. Before we use the experimental methods, we have to found it. So this is our first study in terminology of addiction and stigma of addiction itself, and this is our research correspondence. You can find us in this email addresses. So thank you so much for your attention, and enjoy our research. Maybe we can collaborate soon. Thank you so much.